One of those rare times where someone catches my videos fast enough that they catch a major misstep on my part, which is really awesome actually, because it's actually caught in time that it's had very little effect, if any. It's had some, but notably, what has it had? I could have done a little bit more counterinsurgency. So here on the preparedness levels, I just ignored this because I'm looking for my particular preparedness level all the way on 4, so I'm not even on this page where I might notice it, right? There are significant resources that the Sandinistas have that I did not have on the board. In particular, all the SAMs and anti-aircraft, all the non-mobile ones, yeah, those weren't in play. There's a fort here. There's one under here, another anti-aircraft. I got the helicopter. That's a little more important to pay attention to. Uh-oh, this helicopter should be ready for use. And none of that really matters because nobody was flying missions over Nicaragua yet. That may change with the U.S. Air Force being in play, but and a carrier group where the balance of power in terms of the air has shifted significantly. Let's say that Nicaragua, for whatever reason, found that a lot of their, especially some of their U.S. planes, were not prepared for battle. Whatever. I found included in here there's a significant number of airplanes as well that have to that I have to allocate. I don't really have time to do that right now. Well, because that involves rebalancing the airfields. And I may cheat a little bit and throw another airbase down or something like that, and rearrange where the planes actually are, just because balancing the planes is a big thing in my view. And making sure I can fly the missions I want. So if I want a really huge mission, I'm going to want a heavy bomb plane to do the close air support, and a lot of fighters, which means that I probably want the fighters distributed between different things. Now, what we're not seeing here, we got a, no, that's a slow plane, right? Yeah. I thought that was a J. Yeah, these are mainly older planes, although we do have a couple of EWs that'll help. And so these are mainly old U.S. planes that Nicaragua still has. So they're not that big a deal, but they're useful in the counterinsurgency side of things. And remember, we had insurgents placed all over stupid places. So you know what? I may actually blow some of these to kill off some of the insurgencies because I didn't have enough counterinsurgency points to kill everything. I think I had like 1 point left, so let's see what we got. Because this is a 4, this can handle it on its own. 2. I can probably wipe out 4 of those insurgents. So let me just take them off the map. And we'll take these guys off because they annoy me the most. And, I mean, that's how it works. You wait until the insurgent is placed, and you can fly the plane. So very little has happened to prevent that from being in effect. And then I'll reallocate the planes and balance them as needed. Big thank you to the guy who sent that to me, though. Screw it. I found another full airport not far away in Leon, and I just threw most of the planes in there, filled out some slots in the other airports. I don't feel like rebalancing everything. It's probably not that big a deal. The thing is, you want to gather planes, like, there are certain conditions where you want to gather planes from multiple airports. But when I want to do that, I've got 3 that I've already balanced out and everything. So I hope I can handle this. One of the big problems is I've got a whole bunch of planes all together that I select for air missions, It gives me maximum flexibility, but it also makes the decision for any given mission kind of painful because, oh, I want to use a slower plane for this because there's no risk, or I want to use jets for this so that I can't be intercepted by as much. So you paw through those big stacks every time. Supplies looks all good for all the communists. It really does. Nothing's gotten really out of hand. And I gotta look to see if I have any reargs I want to make. Find anything? I don't know if that's accurate. There's probably something damaged somewhere that I can rearg, but I looked around and I kind of want to get anybody who is damaged off the line if they are, so I didn't look at the stuff right on the front. Guerrilla attacks, I'm looking around, I don't see any insurgency units sitting next to anything they'd want to be able to attack yet. So I can't do that, and that pushes me into the regular ground unit movement, which is going to take a little bit of time. I'm hoping to maybe start pushing out a turn every couple days, and that probably means like a video a week, because I'm not going to cover much in them. I'm just going to try to capture the story. I don't know how long I'm going to be having to play this. I may have to take a break, because this is slow going. There's a lot of pieces on the board, and it's a complex system. On the bright side, I'm probably not going shopping this week. My wife is still recovering. An insurgency movement, a big push still against Honduras. Oh, I forgot about my El Salvadorians. I really don't know what the Femlin and whatnot would possibly want to do. I think they're going to just stay there anyway, so that's fine. Another thing I've been forgetting about is the CIA copter here. That could be very, very valuable. And they were kind of caught unawares, I guess. It's going to be common. All the different colors, it's very easy to forget. When you start looking at sectors of the map, this doesn't really fit in with anything else. On the other hand, don't want to lose Tiger Island particularly, so it's not that big a deal. I don't know what I could have done with them. I definitely don't want to fly them anywhere in in something where they can be intercepted, which is in the Messiah range. So unless I can take down the EW capability, that's not going to be an issue. Falling back from the FD, I can't remember who's what. The FDN, and with Arda not able to do anything impressive, Costa Rica, I guess we're just going to keep attacking them. That puts us onto insurgency placement, and as usual, I spent maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes moving pieces. In some games, that's fine. In this, for whatever reason, like with Vietnam, I just want to walk away. It's just too big. I don't know why. Some of it, I'll spend 20 minutes on a turn very easily on Terrible Swift Sword. Very easily. 20 minutes moving one person, firing all the attacks and everything, and then move away. I may have gotten older, though, in terms of not being willing to stand around and do as much, not as a matter of physically, but more just the impact on me in terms of playing board games. I've learned new habits that shorten the amount of time that I'm playing, even more than they used to. So little 20-minute slices used to be my thing. Now it's a little shorter than that, at least with games where I'm pretty uninterested in what's happening. Yep. The thing I gotta deal with thought-wise is I know that the U.S. carrier group's coming this turn, at the end of the turn, and I had better use insurgency points up at this point. It wasn't clear that was going to happen last turn. Now, the Sandinistas hear on the news, the U.S. has dispatched a carrier group to the Pacific coast of Central America. Okay, well, it's time to do something then. What is that something? Yeah, well, it's use up as many, and I don't have a whole lot of my insurgency commands to create insurgents as I can while I have air superiority. Now, that doesn't really help me if I'm throwing them, outside of my air defense range. It only matters if I'm throwing them in my air defense range. So, for example, the El Salvadorians, well, I mean, it does and it doesn't. There's going to be more air power next turn for the Allies. But, there's nothing I can do if this helicopter goes over and prevents some insurgents from forming. There's just nothing I can do about it. So, outside of the FSLN insurgents and these guys, there's not much to do. Okay, I'm just kind of babbling my way through. Problems in this game is, as long as the enemy's got air power that can reach your insurgents, it's almost not worth doing it unless you're overloading their capacity. So I've got like 6 insurgents that I could place with the Femlin, whatever their EARP or something like that, the AARP, that I can place over there. But I mean, even El Salvador itself can take care of 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. Okay, that means I've got 2 left, and it's probably worth Honduras throwing some in. Now, is getting rid of El Salvador and Honduras's bombardment capacity, just spending insurgent points to get rid of some of that firepower, worthwhile? I don't know. I'm just burning insurgency points and taking away their chance of maybe hurting someone. It might make more sense on another turn when I'm worried that the Allies are going to actually go for Messiah and are going to, build a big strike up, and I may be able to delay that or something. But again, I really don't think so. I think, the air power that it takes up is so little that, it's like between 6 and 10 planes, all bombers, no interceptors necessary. And the interceptors are the big deal to getting you to drop a load on one of the key issues. The bombers are not. So it's one of these factors in this game where I just kind of throw my hands in the air and say, well, sure, I can attrition some current capacity by spending something that's permanent for me. That doesn't seem worth much. What is it? What do I do? I don't know. And so many of the decisions in the game feel like that, where I just feel paralyzed and unwilling to do anything because there's no clear goal to it, I mean, draining the other guy's air power for the course of a turn, I don't see a connection as to, yes, that will allow me to do this. And, it's part of my dissatisfaction with the game and with other games that are similar to this is, why bother? It just feels like such a waste. Pathetic when I'm facing something I don't want to deal with. Anyway, jumped through the insurgency stuff. There was nothing remaining to do. Get to the air missions phase, and this is where it gets ugly because I'm hitting the core of Honduras here. The Hondurans can't do a whole hell of a lot about my ground units attacking. Conceivably, no, they can't even throw a defensive helicopter. And that's one of the things is your helicopters don't have the time to react, so they have to be sitting in the hex to defend, which is one reason why you're not seeing the CIA headquarters helicopters doing much. They're good on offense, though, right? But for the airstrike situation, well, I mean, my numbers are not very good. I can launch a fair attack here. I can certainly get a good one there. But that's not the level of violence that I want to accomplish. On the other hand, when I start looking, I'm looking at like 2-to-1s and stuff, and I probably want to do them. I probably want the attritional levels. Because if I overrun that airport, it's good. So I started looking at, well, what happens if I bomb the shit out of the airport? Well, bombing the shit out of it means, of course, I could do ground unit bombardment too and reduce some steps. But bombing the shit out of the terrain feature for an air facility means getting 12 bombardment factors. I can do that. And I can accumulate enough fighter cover that's an issue, that's cool. But the most I'm going to get, the best I'm going to get, is this A4 result on a 6. That means the air facility is damaged. Anything that's sitting would be destroyed. I don't know what damage means. I'll look at that up. If that means that I freeze the planes, that's great. I don't think it does, though. But if it does, I pretty much succeed, right? Unless there's terrain here. There is an AA unit, so I might want to bomb that too. And possibly multiple attacks here. But, and where that's here, that would be, I need a D for that, I think. Yeah, I would need a D to destroy the anti-air, or to damage the anti-air facility. And it would still get a shot at me. The superscript 4 would be that I'd be able to hit 4 steps of planes. I'm gonna have to look up all that shit. You know, I went out for a walk today. This is me still trying to delay the whole thing because I really don't want to do it. I went out for a walk today with the thought of, yeah, you know, after getting done with work and some of the shit that I do to fuck around on, you know, Flash type games, or whatever they are now. They may not be Flash anymore. I still have Flash enabled, so I don't know. Well, I kind of had I could go for a walk or I could play. You know, like, well, definitely I go for a little walk. But when I got back, there was the thought of, well, I could play. I just keep putting it off and putting it off. I know this is going to be horrible. You know, it's just going to be such a mess for so little payoff. But I have to finish it. I have something else that I owe someone to put up, and I also don't want to just quit because I don't like something. I haven't given this a fair chance this time, but I do know that I don't like it. You know, fair. The same kind of thing happens, you know, before I was videoing games. I would start something and, you know, I'd be like, well, I must play. I remember I left the Central Front series set up out in my garage. Yeah, I played like a turn or two of it. I think the 3 games that existed out of the original S&T versions, I have the later ones which don't match it, and counters to make it match that are horribly homemade counters. But anyway, I ended up leaving it out, you know. My goal was to play it over the summer. Well, it ended up staying set up out there all winter long when it was too cold to play and everything, and probably lost a couple pieces that way on this huge table that I had to climb up on. It was basically, you know, where planting stuff went and everything that I had to climb up on to play because it was up against the wall and it's too big a game. Yeah, it's only 3 maps, but the way it's set up, you can't reach everything unless you can walk around the tables. And yes, I intend on setting that sucker up at some point. That's been on my kind of high on the list like this is. I don't know why I torture myself, but I can't help myself. I mean, I really can't. It's like, I feel like, oh yeah, once I pull the trigger to try playing something, I really do feel like I have to give it a better chance than I've given this so far. Fuck. So I figured out what delayed me and prevented me from playing last night. It's that I have to look up some rules on the damage to the airfield. And I started trying to do that. No, it's not in the index. On the bombardment, it's really not here that I see. It's not in the chart. It's got to do something, though. Well, actually, it does do something. It does this. There it is. Okay. But it's painful to figure out what's going on. And when you're already so discouraged by, the way the mechanisms of the game actually work, the way you have to play things out, and the amount of effort you have to put in, and you have no excitement to drive you, it's very hard to maintain the level of excitement necessary to dig and delve into the rules the way that, I would with like Le Grand Guerre. I put effort into that. Of course, I was younger then too. But it's not like I haven't played this before. I think I always gave up when I got to the bigger scenarios. I said, I just can't face it. So this may be the first time that I'm, well, this may be no greater effort than I've put otherwise. We'll see how far I get, because I'm feeling very discouraged about playing. And, it just doesn't, there's no fun for me. The way I'm thinking is I want to launch a massive attack on the airport. Why? Well, I can cut the amount of planes that it has. Now, well, I don't know which airport it is. Again, you got to paw through the stack of things. It's number 5. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 planes at this airport. Which is in a way not that big a deal. So my capacity would go down to 5. 2 might be destroyed. No, nobody's in sitting. So my capacity would go down to 5. So 3 kind of useless planes would get moved to sitting. Okay. But I can target a number of things here with the attack. I can target the anti-aircraft gun. I could target a ground unit. I can drop as much as I can on the airbase itself, and in order to do this, I need to send a fairly massive fighter support, because I think that Honduras will have to scramble their fighters to defend their airport. But I can't afford to send all my planes, all my fighters, and in order to do all of that, I have 4 different air bases, each of which can supply up to 4 planes, except for one which can supply 6. And try to come up with a balance of firepower, fighter power, and EW, obviously, to be able to push the result while still keeping enough reserves in place to hit other things, which may include this other airport up here, which also has an anti-air gun. And I may not actually attack this turn, depending on the results of the air attacks. Obviously, I'm going to make the pick-off attacks on the sides, but these 2 units, they're in a strong position that it would be difficult for me to take unless I get some really good results, like a close air support and such. I can hold off some of those other missions. The only thing is I can only bombard each unit once, and each terrain feature once. So I get 1 shot at any particular mission I want to undertake, and I got to get it perfect. I got to get my best shot off on whatever that is without shooting my wad, as it were. And, you know, exactly the kind of optimization problem I really don't want to do. I have multiple attack options, right? I have an attack option using only jets and one using things that can be intercepted by other stuff. God, I hate being handed a whole bunch of different choices where it's not a visual choice. You know, I have tons of choices when I'm moving units around on the map for dispositioning, you know, where I want the odds to be best. And that's easy for me to absorb and understand. This is probably no more complicated, except there's no visual clue to it. I'm just like balancing out numbers. It should be done on a spreadsheet or something. The counters actually are a difficult way to provide this information. I think I'm going to have to move my air chart close to me so I can sit down and do this work. Because I did it, last time I did it standing just there. But man, it's just too much, you know. It's going to be like 20 minutes of analysis to figure out what I want to drop. And that's not why I play games. Being that it's work that's similar to what, you know, the actual air attack officers would be providing. It's a great simulation in that sense, but it's also, and obviously it's much lighter to do this than, you know, what the actual people determining the attack are going to be doing. But they're also getting paid for it. It's their expectation, it's their job, and there's probably many people working on the problem. One of them doing this, one of them doing that. The final decision will probably be, you know, handed to someone not at the level of information that I've got, but actually a higher level of information. Here are our plans, and they'll just hand them to you. Here's your different good air attack plans. This is something where computer games actually come in well, because an optimization AI could give you 3 or 4 good plans by their heuristic. And you could still dig in and do all the details if you wanted to, but it could give you 3 or 4 good plans by your heuristic. If you say, I want to attack these objects in there, and what if I remove this one? What if I remove that one? And it'll just throw you different, you know, flight plans for it in terms of, you know, attack groups, and you choose one that looks best. You'd be sitting there in a very, you know, high level, just saying, yeah, that one looks good. Yeah, as opposed to doing all the number crunching and then making a decision that probably isn't really any more informed. Oh, but I've got my Soviet MiG-27s with standoff attacks. Ruh-roh, yet another choice, but one that just immediately appeals to me. I can put the standoff attacks back out of mind. I have something like 3 MiG-27s, and you got more coming in, but it's just, they come to a 6-point bombardment factor, which, let's ignore the ground unit, although knocking out the AA with that might be of some value. I'm not getting to the D results on a 6, so screw that. Oh, wait, no, I could get one, but whatever. It would require modifiers, and I think they're not in my favor. The air facility itself, if I wanted to hit that, maybe reduce the interception capability, although I could be intercepted within range of the standoff attack. That ends up, oh look, maybe I get, again, it's not enough bombardment capability. So I would rather use the MiG-27s with their powerful fighter capability as escorts. First step towards this, I break my planes up in each airfield. They're all mutually supportive because they're all close to each other within EW range. so that I can analyze what I have better. And again, yes, I can't do the standoff attack. I've only got 6 points of bombardment factor from those 27s. And in fact, the 27s are kind of interesting because I could use them as dual purpose. I can send them in on a mission. I have one fantastic bomber somewhere. There it is. This T-22. That's got a 3 bombardment factor. That would be great at close air support. However, that's a plane then that I have to leave off this mission or else plan on doing the close air support in with these other actions. I would rather hold off on that and make the decision after I make the decision of whether or not I'm going to attack. So that plane I think I'm going to drop out of the bucket, even though it's my best bomber of all. And focus then on 2-point planes to be able to launch a strike. And for that, I want to get 12 points on the air facility. I want to be able to hit the AA unit with good strength. That's another 15. So we're looking at 27 points of bombardment factor. Now, maybe the AA is the more important to hit first, because then the next mission won't be facing it. So if I only can do one of those two, it's the 15-point AA fire. I have, what did I say, something like 18 planes I can send up. And I have to send a fair amount of fighter capability with that. I may want to send fighter bomber capability with the idea of, if I don't get intercepted by a big force, those bombers, if they can get me that 12-point terrain feature on the airport, become valuable. Again, you know, there's so many constraints on the optimization problem, and they're flexible constraints. It's not like this is clearly better than this or something like that. So, you know, it's not just an optimization problem over multiple dimensions, which itself is a hard problem, but it's one that's kind of loose, you know, where, okay, feel does come into it, but it wasn't quite as painful as I feared, but spilling all the units out definitely helped being able to sit and look at them. I've come to the conclusion that I don't have enough capability to hit 2 targets at once, unless something changes, like I don't get intercepted. So what I've devised is 15 points of planes here, which is, I don't know where to put things, shit, which is, oh, I hope I didn't fuck up. No. 15 points, which gets me to the best column on the anti-aircraft table. And I filled up my entire remainder. Well, I actually have one more space, but I don't have a jet here that I can send to help. This is all jet capable. And now we just take off from somewhere around here. I think we just pick one. Leon's probably the closest. And count the distance to the furthest. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So I've used up 4 already, and now I pick my flight path in. My movement allowances are all very high. 14, well, 14 actually, I've got low. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So at this range, I can be intercepted. The mission is unknown at this point. The size of the Air Force coming in, though, is known. And for maximum flexibility, do I want to fly over? I do have a path that I can get there without having to undergo any AA fire. So the answer is yes, I'll increase my flexibility as much as possible. Now it's time for me to pull up the Honduran planes. This is going to be a whole lot easier, and figure out what kind of counter air I want to launch on them. And this, because we're going to be doing the air combat, real air combat in detail, like large scale stuff, this video is probably just going to be turned to. This has a grand total of 2 jets capable of intercepting this. So we're going to take a hard pass on that. And we're essentially going to let these guys get in. And that means the counter, we may not see any air fighting happening in the whole game. No, we will at some point. Okay, so now we hit the air defense table. We've got a non-mobile AA, which is got any modifiers. Air defense occurs of AWACS, air unit, or Messiah, not yet. 3 of a friendly EW unit, that's +1. I think these are exclusive, but I'm not sure. Undamaged air unit with an air defense, air facility with an air defense, that brings me to +2. That brings me to +1 because there's an EW with the attack. You always send an EW up if you got one. Okay. So we get a grand total of 3. That's going to be 1 hit on the attacking planes. And I believe the attacker gets to choose the loss, but I'm not positive. And I hear my wife's here, so I never get to talk to her. So we're going to take a little break, even though it's inconvenient. This is an example. Air defense is, and I thought there's a lot of duplication here, but I come over here and there's the first reference to air defense is over here, air defense attacks, which just sends you, and at least it has a reference. The game is not good at giving you references within the rules. Relying on the index is often required. And I thought the duplication, the fact that this has a reference kind of makes up for the duplication issue. Then that gets me over to the second reference that was in the index on it. But I mean, just the fact that the word air defense is mentioned feels a little goofy for that. Now let me just see. Okay, we're here. Results. The owning player takes the losses, as described in air combat. I think I can do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take it on something shitty, but what is that something shitty? Is it, you know, a crappy range jet? Or I think this is the worst thing I have. I've got like these bombers. So this is going to take a hit, and it only has 1 step. Let's see, let's make sure these things have multiple steps. Yeah. So I just lost a plane, for whatever that matters. And I gotta figure out how to put this where I can remember to put it away when I'm done with what I'm doing from the air defense. That's all that I lost there. And now I actually have an extra 3 points of bombing. Now I can't use, they're all 1-point bombers. I could drop a +2 air support attack, but basically I have 3 more points that I can throw into this fight because they were left out. I can certainly do that with a ground unit bombardment. Terrain feature, against the airfield, it doesn't do much for me. A D is not going to do me any good at all. So let me pick a ground unit to pick on. And knocking out the artillery wouldn't really help. So we'll hit one of these infantry brigades. Are they brigades? Regiments. And now it's on a 5 or a 6 there, but then we look here for modifiers. Allied air units were attacked. That's a -1. So I am going to need a 6 to hit it. And then that ground unit can't be bombed again. I could have foregone the attack, but I don't have a lot more left. And now what's really painful here is I've used almost, I mean, this is like an alpha strike. And I'm not hitting the airport. So I'm not actually hurting the Honduran capability to interdict my flights. I get a 5, which would have worked if it wasn't for the -1. And now I bomb the terrain feature with my 15 or more. No, I'm sorry. I bomb the AA with my 15 or more. And that also is at -1, which means I'm unlikely to do much to it. I think I succeeded. Okay. I have damaged that AA. I'll put that at the bottom of the stack now because it's damaged. And as you can see, not much was done. Now I've got to reallocate these planes to balance out the situation because I found myself not thrilled with what I had where, but I have to be careful about my limits, etc., as to what goes in the used boxes. I could throw stuff in the sitting box with the assumption that I'll be pulling units out of there. That's an example of one air attack that accomplished not a whole lot. It did take down the AA, but I'm not sure I have enough capability to hit the airbase anymore. And in fact, I'm not sure I have enough fighter capability to defend me, even to drop the +3 that I want to drop into that hex. That's what I'm going to aim for next, I think. I was able to put together a 10-point bombing run. It's a slow fighter plane situation, and I'm going to fly in. I will follow the same kind of path as before, 3 hexes out. There's an interception capability that I have to check for the Hondurans. Now, this is a smaller force. However, there are planes that are multi-use here. I tried to put together a 10-point bombing run, but if I'm faced with a big enough anti-air power, I may devote more of my capability towards fighter planes and less towards bombardment. It's a slow-speed air mission, even though it's got jets associated with it. Honduras can intercept it with their slow-speed planes. I've got a fair number of planes coming in. I've got 6 planes with a total strength of 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 with an EW. Why did I leave a unit out? I think because I've got 4 planes from the first thing, and I didn't have my planes balanced perfectly, so I was only able to get 7 planes that were capable of engaging in this mission. I have another fighter plane or fighter capable plane out there, but it was based at the same base as these guys. Again, you get your balancing wrong, you pay a price. Now comes the decision for the Sandinistas. Do I want to do more of a counter-air mission than the bombardment mission I was planning on? Right now, I've only got 6 fighter support to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We both have an EW involved in this. And I look here at my bombardment, and I could get rid of 3 bombardment factors and add more air power. That seems like a good idea because I have these 2-point planes. Okay, so there's 3 bombardment that I've turned into fighter power. I've got some more. I could just make this a massive counter-air, and I could abort it before it gets into range. And that sounds like a good idea to me. So let's just throw more planes in. Now these defensive planes can't fire. Ooh, that's a 2S, yeah. Yeah, let's Let's make sure we have all these here. So now I've got a bigger counter air mission that I took out of this. My goal being, let's shoot down as much of the Honduran Air Force as we can, rather than try to bomb the airport. If I can knock out most of their fighters, they're not a problem anymore. You know, I don't really need to hit the airport. The counter air is sufficient. And that's why a mission like this is kind of neat, and the fact that you have the flexibility. You don't have this flexibility in Gulf Strike, and I think in Fleet games, where, again, I'm not positive with Fleet. But in Gulf Strike, you have to assign the missions ahead of time, which makes it a horrible, horrible solitaire experience. I may try to take the mission flight, the mission flexibility rules out of Central America to make the game more solo playable, and see if I enjoy Gulf Strike more, because I think that's always been one of my big hurdles with Gulf Strike. And obviously I can't get anybody to play that shit with me, you know. I don't even try. If somebody was really excited about it, I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll do that. But it's not the kind of thing I try to catch people, because I haven't had much fun with it. Whereas it might be a great game with that interactive competitive play. This one, I feel like I get to make these decisions on the solo side, and I think they work pretty well. That the truth of the matter is, when you launch the mission, you've made the decision on what kind of load you're carrying on those planes. You might be able to dump some of your bomb load, but you won't be carrying as many air-to-air missiles, so you won't be as good at air combat. For what that matters. Okay, I'm gonna brush up on the air combat roles, because we're actually doing it here. Procedure's easier than I feared. It's simple and procedural, and that's why I don't remember it. Procedural things are always hard for me to keep in mind. I just think, it's all spelled out in there, you know. And then I'm not able to think in terms of them. Okay, so the first thing we do is we determine who has initiative. We're not within range of Messiah. However, both sides have an EW unit present. Actually, this airbase has just launched its EW unit, so it no longer has one, which means we can't combine anymore. This is an important factor. But by bringing it along, I get a combat bonus, so we want that. I also get the initiative off of that. I am going to say, because I have the initiative, that I'm going to make the Hondurans the defenders. Whatever. Then we determine the intensity level. That's the total number of planes involved. 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, we've got lots, which is the big intensity. We count the strength. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, that's not quite 2 to 1. Maybe I didn't want to put all these fighters in there. Maybe I do want the mission to go on. Okay, time to reallocate, because I do know what's facing me as it's coming. So I don't want to be higher 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I don't want to be higher than 10, which would force him to a 1 to 2 if he took the attack. So I only want 10 of these, and I have to drop units back out into bombing missions. Me down to 8 on the bombardment for air facilities, which is fine. I could shift one more plane up, but I don't think that matters. Okay, so now we're here attacking at 1 to 1. What are our die roll modifiers? AWACS within 10, no. EW within 3, or accompanies the mission. Those are two separate things. I could have just left the EW at the hex, and that would still give initiative. I'm going to do that and not launch the EW. That means, and again, I'm fudging around with shit because I'm trying to get that. That means I have one more strength point on attack. I can give up 1 bombardment factor. This is important because I need this EW here to maintain intercept capability. Although I have no more fighters, but it can also allow me to combine air mission in case I want to do counterinsurgency or something like that. Okay, so that gives me this, but I probably need another strength point here. So I'll throw another one of these up there just to make sure that the Hondurans can't take the attack side of things. So we've got a +1 for that. There's no air facility here. I could have waited till he got to the air facility for a bonus there. Oops. Enemy AWACS within 10. Enemy EW is within 3. Enemy EW accompanies units on air mission. That cancels out the one there. Okay. So this only helps on attack. The advantage of the air facility in the hex, and the fact that these guys actually were able to, well, because I made them the attackers, there's not going to be a bonus either way. So we're kind of a balanced chart. The alternative would be to attack at 1 to 2 with a +1 on the die roll, which is not as good if we fought in the facility hex. So I'm going to leave things as they are, but I may have waited to intercept until they hit the air facility. All right, I roll a 5. The attacker causes a 2R to the defender. Okay. Since these guys are just on an interception mission, they're going home anyway. But they don't have to go home to the base that's going to be bombed. We don't know which base is going to be bombed, though. But so they have to take 2 steps of their choice and then fatigue. Those both as damage steps on these A-37s. They don't get much worse. They get lousy at counterinsurgency, I think. They go from 1A to 1B. But otherwise, they're pretty much unimpacted. So that's a pretty good loss. And then I go home, and we proceed with the bombing mission, which will be these planes. There's no air defense this time. We're coming in with a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bombardment factors against the airfield, which is going to put us on this table. Modifiers. There's no air defense this time. I don't think anything is in play here. Being intercepted doesn't appear to have impacted this, which is a little weird. I would think that even just being intercepted would cause some disruption. So we are looking for a 5 or a 6 in order to get damage to the airfield for whatever value that is. That will cause longer term disruptions. We get that, and we get the good one. 6 or more, that's an A2. That's going to cause 2 step losses to planes that are there. It's going to cause a damage marker, which we'll put here. Yeah, great. But yeah, 2 step losses, and that actually reduces the capability of that airfield. Now, I flew back more of my planes to the other airfield back here, figuring they're probably aiming for the hex they were aiming for. But we've dropped that down to a 5 capacity airfield, and it can only launch 2 planes per activation. That's not a big deal for the rest of this turn. I've used up my fighters. I'm probably only going to be doing counterinsurgencies, and 2 planes can usually do that. This was taken on a transport plane, and I've actually got a plane that's sitting now, so I've got some problems in terms of my capacity. I probably have to move another plane out here. I wasn't really I didn't count, hey, what happens if I'm damaged? I can do that in a transport strike mission and just fly something, assuming nothing goes back to base. In fact, whatever mission I do, I can return to this other base. The problem I have, of course, is that base isn't that big, so I may be looking at, well, what's this fucker? I wonder if that's somebody who got hurt here. Shit, I don't know what the hell he's doing back there. Oh, I ran back to recover. That's what he's doing there. He's going to go into recovery. Okay. I may end up abandoning this as my airfield and using just an airstrip. My planes are getting reduced. Anyway, I just took a transport plane. I find transport planes largely not useful. And they're great things to absorb losses for. You'd think, well, what about paradrops and stuff like that? Yeah, paradrops are pretty dangerous. And I gotta tell you, once you knock out Messiah and such not, you can start doing some neat stuff down there. But I just don't feel like a single Honduran transport plane is going to be that badly missed. Okay. I returned to base. I was kind of happy with the balance that I had this time, so I didn't really modify that. And now I've got one more flight, which is just really delivering that +3 strike here. I don't think I can hit this yet. I haven't done that much to it. Although I could drop the +3 there and hope for the best. Let me think about my balancing, what I want to hit. And balancing in this case being the actual combat values that I'm putting in the ground combat that's coming up. The best I can get to this against this is like a 1-to-1. I don't remember this being terrific if I do that. If it was, I'd like it. 3, 4, 5, 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 5. If I get an attack helicopter in there, which I can because I think he's out of fighters now. You never want to do this to yourself. You never want to get rid of all your fighters. I fucked up. Yeah. You know what? Let's chance it. Let's chance it because the U.S. is coming in, and if we can knock this to hell, that'll help. Because I think I've got pretty good odds here too. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got attack helicopters I can put into play in a couple of these fights. I think we can do some damage. I don't think we can sweep the Honduran army out of there, but I think we can do some damage, and I think we'll get away okay. Right. So that was part of the air missions. Now it's time to launch the attack helicopters where they're going to go, and then we'll be on the ground combat. Able to get attack helicopters onto these. This is going to be kind of weaker attack than I first envisioned, but oh well. I mean, somebody's in my gutter. And I also pulled this attack helicopter out of, it was not in a location where it could remain. So the question is, hey, do I really want an attack helicopter down here? This is looking ugly. I don't want to lose one. And I'd rather give up some ground to the insurgency up there than risk my helicopter. Right then. A little over the rules on victory conditions again. And maybe I should have read them a little more carefully. I was under the impression the attacker could declare a victory if they met their conditions for a scenario. No, both players have to kind of agree that the scenario's over. I know the defender, I remembered seeing where the defender had the option to say, hey, you gonna let me win? There are some suggestions for when the game will end, no matter what. But they're kind of extreme. They're like, well, there's just nothing that could be done in these cases. Like the communist player conquers both El Salvador and Honduras, and it's impossible for U.S. intervention to go to level 4 because of forced withdrawals or World War III. The Allied player conquers Nicaragua, and all Femlin units and entrenchments are eliminated. That's pretty damn big. Either player as the aggressor has met all the objectives for a militant goal, and the opposing player as defender has been unable to meet all of his objectives for the lowest goal level. Okay, that one might be reachable. Either player as the defender has met all his objectives for militant. In addition, as an aggressor, he has met all of his objectives for any goal level. Of course, the decision of who's the aggressor in a scenario is actually up to the players, but and not any of those would be a decisive victory. It's possible both players could win a scenario at one point. I'm okay with this kind of thing. Among other things, because I'm playing solo, it allows me to call the game at any time. But the reason I was looking it up in particular was, hey, Costa Rica, I think, has just been conquered. Its only town has fallen. Is that a conquest? Well, I couldn't find a definition of conquest. I found the effects of conquest. It's not in the index. It's probably buried in there somewhere, but I haven't seen it. But I was just a little curious. Given that I wiped out all their units, there's not much effect. They don't have anything else. The U.S. is still able to intervene there and everything like that. Anyway, I'm moving on to the other ground combats. I just wanted to point this out, how loose it sort of is. Other scenarios have very strict victory conditions. It's only this sort of player-generated scenario that really leaves it up to the players to decide what their victory conditions are, where they're going to call the game. And I'm cool with that, honestly. It provides a sandbox and allows you to assess your victory conditions to some extent, with some guidance, but how long you want to push the operation, how long the war wants to go. There is a pace to these games. Now, realize, Honduras has lost a fair number of planes. They might end up surrendering. Not with the U.S. air intervention. That's probably going to... Well, without U.S. ground intervention, it might be difficult to stop that from happening. If you're looking at a situation like that, where these resources, the airplanes, the insurgency points, etc., the game represents almost an operational level in terms of this is one operation, one little campaign underway. And as such, and given the speed of modern warfare, resources get depleted really fast. And you'll see this in Gulf Strike too, especially in the scenario of the Iran-Iraq war, where the two sides just, neither one can do anything. They don't have the capacity to launch an offensive. So this is basically, one offensive by Nicaragua, a very military theme view of the situation, not some kind of long-term, building up the insurgency. The insurgency points, for example, those are the results of the long-term political operations that you see in like a Vietnam or something. This is really just a few days or weeks. Each turn is basically a day. So, you're seeing a fast operation, but you're also seeing the capacity to maintain a prolonged military operation being heavily limited. And the game can't handle anything else, right? If the U.S. can't stop Nicaragua, if they actually start losing forces or something, they're not going to really be able to just up this to a full-scale war in the period of time that the game will last. So, however you want to take that, that's what the game's about. And that the fast nature of modern warfare, and all these interactive decisions and all the complexity of planning air missions and such not. Well, that level of detail doesn't work terribly well for me. That's what we got. Anyway, let's hit the rest of the combat operation, and then I don't know. I probably won't make it through the turn, but I might. Oh, well, through half turn, and then I'm going for a walk. I've been planning on it, and it's supposed to start snowing and raining and shit this next week. Blowing through this hex and gaining that, exposing units to air attack if I don't get some reserves in there. It's one of the problems. You can only advance one unit and one asset. And those pairs of Nicaraguan units that you need for air defense, well, they get broken up by moving forward. Not like Honduras and El Salvador have any air defense for the most part, so that's fine. I guess. It's just you're trying to keep them together, but you can't really advance with those units without getting some kind of armored reserve into play, and that's one of the uses for it. But then we hit here, and we got it over on a nice table, but we had no close air support. I hope I'm out of bombers. I think I used up everything. Yeah, I used up all my bombing capabilities. Because if I wasn't, I screwed up by not putting some +1 combat results on the other two combats that I'm going to fight. The big +3 is great there. But these crappy die rolls are hurting me. This was an interesting die roll because it's in the blue area, which means the defender is going to have to retreat. But actually the result is split up. The attacker took a hit. The defender got a retreat result. The defender chose to take a step loss instead of retreating. You can always do that. Because if I lose this hex, my capital is cut off and won't have a retreat and won't have supply, and that's not a good thing. Well, they're in supply. They're in a supply source, so that's not a big deal. But yeah, they'd be cut off from retreat. I'd rather not have that happen. Up here, things are even worse. I did a 2-to-1 attack, but crossing a river line and not a lot of support. I really should not have launched that. I shouldn't have launched the attack here. I should have devoted everything to just cracking that and trying to get around there. This is a crapshoot. I'm not going to get the hex. It's, I think, a city. I don't want to move the counters with my left hand. I know that stack will go between the pooching, the slick counters. This game is a mess. You'll see my counters are... I mean, I've got things facing different ways to indicate something, but it's also a mess where pieces just go sliding off stacks, because there are fair size stacks here. And the pieces are small, the hexes are tight for them anyhow, and the biggie is they're slick and pretty crowded. But anyway, I got a result which forced the Nicaraguans back. Honduras is doing a pretty good job, it looks like. Unfortunately for me, the only armored reserve I had was stacked on top of a mechanized infantry. I'd have to expose one or the other. Honestly, the mechanized infantry is not that valuable, but I left them together because my own infantry, it's slower, and I may need breakthrough capabilities. I had a pretty good die roll here. Did a damage, but it's in a city, so it's not going anywhere. And overall, I would say the Honduran line did a pretty good job holding off the Sandinistas. Flinging through the rest of the stuff, nothing exciting, moving some helicopters back out of places they couldn't attack, and this is the only one capable of defending. We hit reinforcements, and I roll a shitty die roll, which means I lose some nice Soviet and Cuban planes that I would have liked to have gotten onto the field. What happens to them? I don't know. I don't know if they're shot down in transit or if the political situation refuses them, they're needed somewhere else. What is going on? That's not terribly well described in it. With the U.S. carriers coming and everything, you know, they're obviously not just delayed and trying to take some other route. So probably shot down is the best example, or driven away with such losses and kind of hemmed in or something. But that gets me to the end of the communist turn on this, and that makes me happy. Pushed through much of the Allied turn already. A little bit of movement going on. I'm going to try to launch an attack against that piece, just ambush it, whatever you want to think of that as. Continuing to try to decrease the fortification there. Not much else that I can do offensively. I feel like I can still hold the Tegulsagapa line a little longer. I mean, it's better terrain than what's behind it, so, you know, the Nicaraguans are just going to keep coming if I fall back. El Salvador getting some of their special forces units. I think they're special forces. Well, one of them is. One of them's a paradrop unit, but I want to get them on the board. I probably don't want to put them there. I'll actually back them up to here. The reason being that they're vulnerable to counterinsurgency here. Back here, within range of our air power. So I put those down early before I was thinking, and realized, wait a minute, I got to worry about counterinsurgency because the Nicaraguans can hit pretty much anywhere on the map. It's a small map. These planes have a lot of distance. And there's really no air cover anywhere except, well, there's not even air cover right in Honduras anymore because all my fighters have gone. So anywhere except for here. The air units back here, they're not able to do shit. They're transport units and the like. There might be some bombers too, but let me check what these suckers are. Yeah, but they're defensive only, so they're not going to be able to intercept. Things are going to change significantly when that carrier group comes in, but that's going to come in on the Pacific Ocean, which means that we're probably going to only be able to protect El Salvador. Unless we were taking the offensive, in which case we could throw the protective shield somewhere in Nicaragua, but we're not going to be able to protect Honduras or any of these other areas that I'm interested in stuff. I tried to throw a lot of insurgents on the board. You can see I spent a lot of my points. Got some really bad rolls. And let's see. Well, now Nicaragua can look for their bombers, see if they have any that they want to dislodge any of those with. I don't think I have anything in range of any attack helicopters. I kind of used my attack helicopters anyway. Wow, he's far away. I don't know. I think he didn't get unflipped. So he can actually be a problem. Unfortunately, I can't combine him with anything else. Yeah, I'm not sure why he's there. Oh, I know, he did a transfer, but I forgot to unflip him. I probably would have done another transfer to get him close to the front. I don't particularly want to be doing counterinsurgency with that helicopter, so I'll just shove him over. Now, what else do we have? I guess that's about it. A lucky day. I didn't need to worry about these guys. I could put them up. There was no problem, actually. There are no bombing planes left for Nicaragua. I thought I had a couple in reserve. I did not. No, I'll clean that up when I have hands. I could disband insurgencies. I don't know if I have any that are damaged. And then we go to my air missions, which are probably a couple of bombing runs, and then whatever's needed to support that. And I also have some helicopters that are going to be moving things. I'm going to be moving some of these special forces to help protect Honduras. I really don't feel like the FDN has any real problem here. I'm mainly on the defensive, so it's just trying to create disruption behind Nicaragua. Successful, I guess. We missed this unit, but hit one down here with El Salvador. We did a couple points of damage against ERP or whatever is there. We blew through this. It's up there. It can be rebuilt. It's infantry. And that means it's time to place my reinforcements. That should be the carrier group, and it looks like some Guatemalan planes coming in. I don't know who they're able to operate with. I am assuming at least one of El Salvador and Honduras, but I've got additional forces coming in too, which is kind of a thing. For me, I went looking for some kind of coordination roles. They're spread out in different places. I couldn't find any for ground units in and of themselves. I found some for scenarios. I think El Salvador, so the World War III scenario has specific ones, and they're kind of off nowhere, but it turns out it makes sense because there's like this set of inserts I haven't removed that one page leads to the other. They're called inserts, but I never saw them as such. They just felt like deployment rules for the communists that got stuck in the middle of the book for some reason. For all the scenarios, honestly. But the World War III scenario says if this town is captured, they're free to move their units into Honduras. So I'm going to say that El Salvador is probably free to operate in Honduras, but they're not particularly desiring to do so. Air units cannot cooperate with Honduran ones, which makes sense. And they may not be able to cooperate in fighting either. I didn't go look that up. Basically, the air unit rules are for cooperation are under the air units. I saw no ground unit cooperation rules whatsoever, but there might be some under the combat rules. The rulebook looks and feels very good when you're maybe a little too dense and textbooky, but it feels pretty good when you're looking at it. But then when you start using it, you find that it's sometimes hard to find things you want, and it feels like the repetition should take care of that. It doesn't seem to, and it's very hard to find for me to find what I want, just because it is so dense and large. And it doesn't have the case number structuring from the SPI days that I find helps me deal with things like SFB that have humongous rule books. And probably ASL for that matter, where you just start memorizing what the page looks like and what the pictures on it are and everything, and you know where to find what you want to look for. I didn't see any restrictions whatsoever with Guatemalan planes, but there's like one plane. I got it way over there in the corner. We got the carrier group in here, and I think the US is going to bump their intervention level up again. And again, I'm going to have that from turn 2, so reinforcements might end up slowed a little bit again because of the more delayed entry. I think that's appropriate. That means there's going to be a roll. The roll, for whatever that means, boosts tensions up. Now we could get our level 1 for free, but it's too late. The level 2 gives us another 2 carrier groups, actually. One here on turn 4 supposedly goes up to turn 6, and one over here on turn 12, as well as a couple of B-52s and the night naval bombardment. And I guess that's about it. I want to roll up the US air power in here because I should be able to do a lot of stopping of Nicaragua with air superiority. And the problem, of course, is how far I'm going to get before that happens. And oh shit, I didn't look and see if I took anything else of importance. It looks like I probably did. So I've got to go look at my victory point sheets and see how they're at. This was from last turn up here, La Cruz, I had taken at the airport. But other than that, I'm up to 6. Got a few more victory points in here that I hadn't caught. Let's mark them down. kind of weird. Like La Union 1314 is here. Is La Union also over here? I mean, this is the thing I'm a little confused about. So La Union is also a port. Does it count under ports too? Yeah, it does. Crap. So there might be multiple. So for example, Liberia is also an airport. Shit. Okay. I'm gonna have to go through and see if I have any double ups. I didn't realize that was the case. And the higher commitment gave the U.S. a bunch of standoff attacks and quite a few smart bombs, incendiaries, etc. They got 2 of each at level 1. I didn't put them on because I forgot, didn't see them, whatever. But they're all going to be in play. I think we're at 8 victory points. Who the hell knows? It's like 90 for the win. So, and again, that's the win if the allied player agrees. Yeah, we're done. You know, we're willing to let you declare a win there, because we don't think that we can keep, you know, we don't think we can really take back any of that land. I suspect we're going to end up at some sort of stalemate, especially if the U.S. starts throwing troops in. But here's the problem. If the U.S. throws troops in, that throws the War Powers Act into play. And if those U.S. troops are necessary to hold the line, then it doesn't work. So if you do start committing U.S. troops, you had better make it so that Nicaragua can't fight the war anymore, which is a consideration. And I think they start getting troops at the next intervention level, intervention 3. Yep. And we have to think real hard about whether or not we want to commit to that. All right, I guess this one goes up.